What is going on, everybody? I am back today because recently I made a video talking about movies that when I was a young child scared me immensely. Movies that I can remember very vividly watching and creeping me out and making me feel uncomfortable. And one of the films that I referenced in that video was Something Wicked This Way Comes, that is based off of the Ray Bradbury novel. And as a young child, there was something about that movie tonally and aesthetically and just the way certain things were presented that really made me uncomfortable when I was, young, 7, 8, 9 years old, in that age range. And I have not seen this movie in a very, very, very long time. And I wanted to revisit it. It became available again recently, and I wanted to give it an opportunity and check it out because I haven't watched it in my adult life. And so I'm going to tell you a little bit about it today. Something Wicked This Way Comes is directed by Jack Clayton. In a small American town, a diabolical circus arrives, granting wishes for the townsfolk, but twisted as only the esteemed Mr. Dark can make them, can two young boys overcome the worst the devil himself can hand out. So I was super excited to revisit this movie. Like I said, it was a very pivotal part in my childhood, genuinely scared me a lot when I was a young kid. And unfortunately, I did not enjoy this movie like at all this time around. I found it to be relatively bland, and I feel like what the film is trying to accomplish doesn't necessarily stick the landing in comparison to what the Bradbury novel does, which made it a relatively baffling experience as I was watching it. But there were moments that I remembered certain scenes and the way things played out that did unsettle me when I was a young kid. And I'll talk about that a little bit when I break the movie down. Beginning of the film, we are introduced to two young kids, Will and Jim. They live in this very small community and they spend a lot of time together. And we're sort of introduced to the two kids' families. Jim's family, he lives at home with his mother. His father left when he was very young, and he thinks that he's going to come back, but obviously he sees his mother with other men and doesn't really know if the whole story is being told to him straight. And then Will, who is very close to his father, I guess as close as he possibly can be. And his father is Charles, and he is dealing sort of with his own mortality. He's struggling, growing older. He's afraid to die, and he definitely it doesn't seem like he's content with the life that he is living. And so we get these characters and these families established, and then we're introduced to a ton of different characters in this community that they live in. Well, one night the boys are out and they see somehow, some way, a train comes into town, and magically, just in the middle of the night, this carnival comes to life. And when they go there, it seems very strange and it makes them both uncomfortable. They experience this thing and they both leave. And then the next day, all of the community goes to this carnival, and it seems like a lot of them, they'll win prizes or their wishes are granted for them, and things seemingly are great on the surface until not so much. And the entirety of the film is these boys trying to investigate what is happening at this carnival run by Mr. Dark, and can they stop whatever evil they're putting into their community. So like I said, this is kind of a baffling movie to discuss because I feel like on the surface, it is very much trying to be one thing, but it also like juggles all of these different themes and tones, and it doesn't really know how to completely and totally land any of them, which makes the movie relatively infuriating to watch. I will talk about some of the positives. I do think aesthetically and creating a specific tone, the film does a really nice job. It feels like fall, it feels close to Halloween, and I really love how creepy some of the images are, especially this being put out by Disney. There are a lot of things in this movie that are genuinely unsettling, and I appreciate that. It kind of dives into a territory where if people were making a children's film nowadays, a lot of this stuff would not be incorporated in the movie, specifically with like scenes with the exotic dancers, certain things like that. They're just moments that you would never see put in a Disney film anymore, and so I think that's interesting, especially because Ray Bradbury was not writing these novels necessarily with children in mind, and so that's fascinating to me that Disney picked this up, but I can understand why, telling it through the perspective of these children, and I think aesthetically speaking, that works very well. Jonathan Pryce's performance as Mr. Dark is really the standout in this. I've always thought he's a very talented actor, and I think he does a really great job with this performance. It's not always the greatest. Sometimes he can come across as a little flat, but I think he does the best with what he's given. Most of the other performances in this movie are not great, which I think is one of the big issues that I have with this movie, especially the two kids. They just feel like they're reading off of a piece of paper. There's not a whole lot of chemistry between between the two of them, which makes the movie relatively infuriating to watch in parts. This thing, pacing wise, is an absolute disaster. The amount of dialogue that they incorporate that I don't feel like adds anything to the overall narrative and the story. It's just really kind of irritating after a while because you don't feel like you're watching what the movie sets up. You feel like you're jumping between these different characters and that the director doesn't really know who to focus on. And if you're looking at the story as a whole, really the father, Charles, is the character that the movie seems to want to focus on, and his own mortality and dealing with the idea of death. And I like when you think about Bradbury's novel, that is much more of the tone that that's going for, like the concept of aging and like holding on to your youth and trying not to, just because you get older, not like falling out of love with the things you remember being younger. And I think there's an importance to that message. I think there's something really great about it. But I think in this particular, film, that you're spending most of your time with the kids, and I think what they're experiencing is just like the fresh excitement of being young and like journeying and adventuring in areas you're not supposed to, and like getting into trouble and like experiencing life firsthand and like learning from making the wrong decisions. And I think that's also very interesting. Like growing up, I always loved coming of age stories, but it becomes really messy when you try to combine the two things and you're jumping back and forth, and the end feels so much more focused on the father's character. And I feel like also the incorporation of these townspeople, there's so many interesting stories that you could dive into if this was longer, with like the decisions that they make in their own lives and like the things that, the regrets that they have and trying to, acquire the things that they want. And obviously this evil entity giving it to you, and you thinking that you've acquired this thing you've always wanted, but it having a twisted, darker side to it. I think like in the hands of a different director, or not necessarily aimed at an audience of children, this could be something incredibly special. I think the premise is really fascinating, and I think there's something you could accomplish here that would work very well. But in the confines of a Disney film, so much of this comes across as really irritating and annoying. And like from the very beginning of the movie, I was like, I don't really love this tonally. I thought that it would have kind of a charm of the era that it was created in, but I just found myself being relatively disappointed because as a young kid, I was scared by a lot of stuff before I turned the age of 10. And so I think that's probably why this movie kind of stuck with me for so long. But as an adult, I just really didn't find much to appreciate with it, and I probably wouldn't watch it again, honestly. So have you seen Something Wicked This Way Comes? Did you love it? Did you hate it? Leave me a comment down below and let me know what you thought. I thought this was really disappointing this time around, unfortunately. I was really looking forward to it, but it didn't do much for me, if anything at all, this time. As always, if you can like the video and subscribe to the channel, helps me out a lot and lets me know the type of content you're looking for. I'm always putting out new material and look forward to getting more out for you in the near future. And as always, everyone, thank you so much for watching and have a great rest of your day.